This is Alexa with the Clinicians Atelier and founder of Care Identity, and I'm really excited to have Amanda Berduris with us today, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda. I'm a licensed psychologist with a private practice in Washington. I specialize in working with trauma couples, and I do something called therapy intensives.
I definitely want to start off kind of with your beginning of your journey. What led you to open your own practice? What were you doing before that? What was that transition like?
I was working at a college counseling center. The majority of my training has been working with university students, and it was work that I really loved. But it was 2020, that very fun year where COVID hit, and there was a lot of demand, and there was a lot more expected of us as therapists to see more and more students, and we did not have time. And I very quickly burnt out. I saw that the university just wasn't really willing to listen to feedback of ways to support us better. So I said, it's time for me to do my own thing and to create something that works better for me.
So when you decided to go ahead and start your practice, what did the beginning look like? Did you work with anyone? Did you just kind of figure it out on your own? What was that process like for you?
I spent a lot of time in free Facebook groups to see other people's advice of like even the legalities, like how do you get started forming a business and getting all the things you need to get in order. So I was still at my job for about 6 months while I was building up some things. I'm saying like lower cost DIY resources of like how to even build a website and buying a website template and things like that. So the first 6 months for sure was a lot of just getting the most free, lowest cost resources that I could. And then probably about like 5 to 6 months into it, then I started to join a couple of coaching programs that were more specifically about marketing, figuring out your niche and things like that. So I could really double down on my practice and making it successful.
Were they specifically led by other therapists, or were they just more general coaching programs?
There was one that was like a marketing expert who specialized in working with therapists. So that one was all about like the website, your niche, starting to learn about search engine optimization. And then one was more in depth about marketing. And that was a therapist who turned coach and isn't active in her therapy business anymore.
So let's talk a little bit about how you felt you set up your website for success.
Mm-hmm. I started with Squarespace. That's where my therapy website still is. I browsed their templates and looked at what looks good enough, and then just kind of picked colors and fonts that looked fine, and started to just write in it as best I could of who are the people I want to work with, what kind of like policies do I have, and things like that. Looking at lots of other therapists' website for inspiration of like, oh, I like how they said that, or I would never have thought to call it, marriage counseling instead of couples therapy or whatever that was. So that was a whole process that I was in it all the time, every day, making some kind of change. Because like now I don't like the font anymore. Now I don't like the color anymore. So just getting way too perfectionistic and nitpicky. And then finally bought, when I went into this coaching program that was more about marketing and SEO, nicer design templates. Bought one of those and learned a lot more about like what is an SEO keyword and how actually are people Googling for therapy and how does that mean that you can find me? So learning a lot of techie stuff that then I was implementing on my website too to get more traffic and get more clients.
I like that. I want to expand a little bit about that because I think that is where a lot of people struggle, is that you're thinking in your training, you're thinking of what you guys call it. And what I try to explain is you need to think of how your patients or your clients are going to call it. So talk a little bit about what that was like trying to figure out what people are actually calling it so they could find you, so you are more searchable.
Yes, specifically with like my trauma work, I do a lot of attachment trauma, complex trauma. Like I know the terms that I use based on like research and our diagnostic manual and things like that. But learning about search engine optimization, like people look for it, but more so they're looking for either just trauma therapy or anxiety therapy, or sometimes they're just looking for therapy. So even learning to see what do I think is happening to put that into these various SEO like search tools and see, am I right? Are people searching for that? No, I'm absolutely wrong. They're not doing that. And then getting recommendations for this performs better than this and making those changes and actually seeing, yes, now people are resonating with what I'm writing on there.
And how did you know people were resonating?
I had a lot of people who would reach out on consultation calls and be like, your website spoke exactly to me. And that was the difference between, a keyword to get the traffic versus what you're actually writing on the website. Because no matter what the keyword was, I could still say, these are the thoughts that you're having. These are the feelings you're having. This is what your relationships look like. And that's the stuff that people are going to most rely on and think about. Is this a therapist who gets me and I trust to start working with? So I was getting that feedback, which felt really, really good.
Nice. So when you were writing what we call copywriting, when you're writing the text on your website, how did you shift out of that, more of that clinical mindset and more into how do I create an emotional connection?
That was a lot of the marketing program I did. It was both like marketing and copywriting. And so it was a lot of guidance and being in a room with a bunch of other therapists and a marketer to hear, we all sound the same when we talk in clinical talk. If we're saying like, here are the symptoms that you're struggling with, like everyone's website would sound exactly the same. And so for us to think about, well, who are your favorite clients? Who are the ones where you feel like you did really effective work? What were the conversations you had with them? What were their aha moments or their pivotal kind of shifting points? And to think about making it more conversational as opposed to just look at what an expert I am and how I understand all of these terms and research and stuff like that, because that doesn't resonate with clients. What resonates is I can have a conversation with you even on this digital piece of paper.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually offer a DIY course and it focuses on anything from creating your logo with AI to copywriting to how to create those emotional connections to how to make the website and then some basic SEO. And the reason I created that is because I did see like more of a need of people wanting to maybe DIY it, or maybe because they're trying to keep overhead low in the beginning and maybe they can't afford to pay someone right now, but they still want the guidance. But that is something I kind of been saying is your website in the beginning is kind of like your mini sales conversation. Exactly what you're saying. It's like they feel like, oh, I can have a conversation with this person. And you're pretty much showing that's essentially what people are. They may never talk to you, and that's your only opportunity to kind of begin selling them. And sometimes people don't think about that. They're just thinking, oh, I'm just going to throw all my services on here. This is why I'm so amazing. And this is why, like, this is all my expertise. And although that's very impressive, and obviously we all have our background, in the end of the day, people care more. How are you going to solve a problem for me? How are you going to help me? And so I really love that you kind of went on this journey of kind of discovering how do I connect and make emotional connections with the people I want to serve. And so tell me a little more. I know you said you were learning about the SEO and everything. How much traffic would you say? Did you see a lot more increase in your traffic from when you originally did it before and then now? And do you use any directories? How were you driving some of this traffic to the website as well?
Yes. When I put everything together myself without knowing anything about SEO, I was pretty much on average getting between 50 and 100 visits a month to my site, which felt exciting, but consults were slower and there weren't that many people coming. When I was working on SEO and learning what that is, making changes, probably within 2 to 3 months, I already started to see now my average is 100 to 200 visitors per month. And now it's 400 and 500. And these days it's like 1,500 people per month that are finding my site. So for sure, like it skyrocketed after actually learning what to do.
Let's talk a little more about your growth. As you're growing your practice, you've set up the website in a way that builds connections. You've done the SEO to help drive traffic. How did you continue marketing and growing outside of just that?
Originally, I got on all of the therapy directories because that's what people say you should do. Some of them worked better than others. Some of them were free. Some of them were, had monthly costs to it. So over time, I realized I don't need to have all of them because number one, not all of them are even working. And two, I wanted to look at, of the ones that are working, who also pays the most money into their own marketing efforts. Like we all know, Psychology Today has a huge marketing budget, so they push a lot. Outside of that, I tried some networking with local therapists for maybe the first 4 or 5 months of my practice, but I found it to be really inconsistent with the people I was connecting with. They were also trying to build their practice. So they weren't looking to refer people. They were looking to get people. So we were both okay, neither of us really has clients. Like, what are we doing here? I'm a very introverted person. So for me, it was also hard to like keep putting myself out there and making these connections and not have the follow through on it. I did a little bit of like marketing on Instagram, but only in the past like 3 months have I ever gotten a client from it. What I saw over and over was like, my website is the thing that is bringing people in. People are either finding me from Psychology Today and then going to my website, or just from like organic search. And like my website is the thing that's converting clients. So website and SEO began to be the thing of like, this is what works. So I'm going to keep learning more about SEO, doing more on Google My Business, and just making my digital presence as strong as it could be.
I want to bring up a couple of things that caught my attention. One being that you're introverted. And I really like that because I feel like people that tend to be introverted, they don't want to do the networking or the in-person sales, which I'm kind of open to both. My sales and marketing course, one of the actual marketing styles is someone that wants a digital presence and focuses more on that. So I'm actually curious to ask you, when you were building the digital presence, were you writing blogs? You mentioned Google My Business. Tell me a little bit more. Let's dive a little deeper into, because someone else might say, hey, I'm introverted too. This actually resonates with me. What would you say that you did that helped you get that traffic so you weren't having to do the networking or the things you didn't really enjoy doing?
Yes, blogs became huge. The more that I could blog, the better. I was doing like once a month, maybe just like every now and then as I felt like it. But I noticed when I started to do weekly blogs, like that also contributed to getting more traffic, getting more clients. The more that I could go into Google My Business and add updates every time I added a blog, or to even add in my services, add in more pictures, use keywords in my Google Business like name as opposed to just like my name or my therapy business name. So like, again, the more that I learned about how to be effective, the more I did. And then the more that like good benefits came from it.
I want to ask, the type of blogs you were writing, what does that look like for someone that's like, okay, what do I even write? You know, do I just write something generic? What do these blogs look like, so that if someone is thinking this is the path they want to go, what would you say to them?
Yes, my blogs were very, and still are very niche specific. So again, I work with trauma and I work with couples. So my blogs are either about like, how is my trauma impacting my relationship? Or am I always going to be anxiously attached? Or how do I get over childhood trauma? What's the most effective treatment for couples? So I make it very relevant to what I'm doing, as opposed to just like 3 signs you might be depressed, because that's not my client. It's helpful mental health content, but it's not my client. I want my clients to see my website and see that my blog just further proves why I am the person for them.
Love that. So you're essentially creating that authority. And it sounds like you're doing like informational and maybe like tips or things, or just kind of helping people understand themselves better. And then through that, you're not only showing the authority that you're an expert in what you do, but you're also helping them to the point that maybe when they're ready to book that call to work with you. When you say you updated your Google My Business, what are you typically updating on there?
There's an option to add updates. So it's literally just, we take my team of virtual assistants, we take a screenshot of, here's this blog that we posted, we link the blog, and we have a short little like excerpt from the blog, which continues to just send Google Business this almost like this signal of like, this is a business who is active. This is a business who is posting things all the time, which is going to get ranked better than someone who never post updates on their Google Business. So it's a very underutilized feature. I think a lot of therapists don't know that they can do that.
Yeah. Is it almost like a post, essentially? Is the updates kind of like a post, or is it something different?
Yeah. If you think about like, if Google Business was Instagram, it's basically like posting a new like static post on Instagram.
Okay, cool. No, that's very helpful. So then from there, tell me a little bit, what other avenues began to help grow your practice as well?
From the very beginning, these are things I've let go of over time, but I was building up, the website, the Google Business, trying to work on some networking stuff, and the referrals were still a little bit slower than I would have liked them to be. So the first thing I did was join an employee assistance program. So that was my place of felt lower commitment than like me going in network with an insurance company or me working part-time at a group practice. It felt like I can take on clients as I need, because in EAPs, clients are essentially getting therapy sessions for free. It also felt like a nice way to like have variety in my practice. So I joined an EAP, got a few clients from that, and then things were still a little bit slow. So then I did decide to go in network through the company Alma for a few months so that I got a few more clients. And while all of that was helping my income to be a little bit more stable, then I made the decision to get off of insurance and then eventually get off of the EAP as well, so that now everyone who comes in my practice is at my full fee, at my cash rate.
So I want to talk a little more about joining the EAP or the Employee Assistant Program. How do you join? How do you even find those type of programs?
Mm-hmm. The ones that I joined, they actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. So a lot of stuff on LinkedIn can be spammy, but some of it is also very genuine. So they invited me to look at their website, learn more about their program, and then if I was interested to apply, which was ultimately, I sent in my resume. I did a maybe like 45-minute interview around my basic clinical skills, like how do I practice? How do I assess for risk? How do I work in a short-term model? Because EAPs usually give their clients maybe like up to 10 free therapy sessions. And then if they felt like it was a good fit, then they invite you to join onto their platform. You talk about fees and any of the like logistics of it. So either people get invited to it, or if you just Google any like EAPs to join that have openings, then they're always accepting people.
And what does that typically look like? I'm just curious. Do they set the rate? Do you guys negotiate a rate? I'm sure people are probably curious how that would look like financially.
Yes, typically they do set the rate, and it's usually, depending on where people set their fee, there's usually a gap of what they're going to pay you versus what you would be trying to charge yourself. For me, even I think sometimes it was like anywhere between like a $50 and $100 gap, but it was, something, it was clients coming in. There are, I think they build in one company that I was working with, they built in almost like perks and benefits. Like if your clients took their feedback forms and you got so many good feedback forms and you got in all your documentation on time for a period of X amount of months, then you'd be eligible for like a $5 raise at the end of 6 months or something like that. So there was a little bit of like price could kind of be negotiable, but a lot of it was also a little bit out of your control. So it's kind of like working for a group practice, but you're not as tied to them as a contracted employee is ultimately what you are.
And like you said, it's a way to kind of do something while you're trying to get your full fee and grow your client panel, so to speak. Yeah, exactly. So from there, you mentioned Alma as well. Tell me a little bit about, I've heard a lot, just through the Facebook groups, people asking about Alma in general and like, should I do it? Can you talk about a little bit your experience as far as, did it really help grow your practice? What was the joining aspect and how was it getting off of it later?
Mm-hmm. The whole process for me was very simple. I had talked with one of these therapists I networked with earlier on, had mentioned she was a part of it. So I was asking her questions about it, ultimately decided if they could pay, they did pay higher than the EAP rate was. So that felt like a good benefit of, I don't have to worry about figuring out what it means to get credentialed myself. That felt like that was going to take too long and be very confusing. All I've ever heard is people have headaches about it. So it was a good balance of, it's a different way for clients to find me. The downside was, and they make this very explicit, like they don't market for you. Like they'll put you on a directory, but they're not bringing you clients per se. But if a client, I'm a part of an email listserv across the whole state. So if someone was like, I'm looking for someone in network with this company, then I could say I'm in network with this company. And so I got maybe between 3 and 5 clients that way. So it built my caseload a little bit, but only because I'm then going back into like my marketing efforts of networking. And it was me going out and seeing like, this could be a good fit client from one of these referrals coming in. And if I can go ahead and work with them. And yeah, I think I was with them for maybe 3 or 4 months. And in those 3 or 4 months, more people were reaching out for my cash pay practice. So I felt at a good place to finally like, okay, like everyone I'm working with in network, they're in a stable enough place. They're doing better than where we started. I reached out to Alma and was like, I'd like to end. And then I think I just had to give my clients maybe like 30 days notice. And then they took care of all of the like legal and logistical stuff with depaneling me from the insurance. So it was pretty easy to get in and to get out.
That's really good. So just for those that are listening, Alma, they do the credentialing for you. Do they help you with the billing per se as well, or do you still bill directly?
Yeah, they help with billing. And it's the other helpful thing is they do also pay you out weekly. Whereas if therapists are getting credentialed themselves and they're managing the billing themselves, I've known some therapists who said they go like months without getting paid, sometimes even years. So to know that you can be in network and get paid weekly is very, very nice and secure.
Okay, awesome. That's good to kind of know. I know most of the people on the podcast are fully cash pay like yourself as well, but people do still ask about insurance because there's always that curiosity. So I do appreciate kind of you sharing that experience. You've been talking about networking a couple of times. What does networking look like for you, especially someone that's introverted? Is this like more virtual? Were you going in person? Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, because I basically grew my practice in the pandemic. A lot of it ended up being virtual meetings. I think I've had 2 in-person networking events ever in my 3.5 years of being in business. But yeah, it's a lot of either being on email listservs where you may not even meet the people, but you start to like recognize the same names. You start to recognize like who's going to be a good referral for me to send referrals to for, we have a similar niche. And so they might send me more people. So that I've also done a few like business coaching entrepreneur retreats where I meet therapists as well. And that's a nice way to network in a fun way because you get to like travel, you're doing other other activities to like grow, connect, and like vision forecasts and stuff like that. But for me, yeah, I do less of the cold outreaching of like, hey, it looks like we might be a good fit. Do you want to get a coffee sometime together? It's honestly, again, I tell people a lot these days, like I don't have to do a lot of networking because my website works so well for me, as opposed to some people love networking and they make a plan to network with someone like once a week, which if that works for you, great. But yeah, for me, I go to Facebook groups still if I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a referral for this client who like doesn't work with my schedule or something like that.
With the Facebook groups, did you ever network to the individuals inside of Facebook groups?
Not really. A lot of what I see Facebook groups end up being is that someone says, I'm needing referrals. And then like 15 people drop their website. And so like, that's about the extent of what I did. I think I've over time come to like recognize again, similar names or if they live close to me, but we don't necessarily consider each other like referral partners or something like that.
Got it. Okay. I know I was just curious because I was just trying to get to what extent of what that looked like. I know you run your practice and you're also now a coach. Tell me a little bit about how you help people and what that typically looks like for someone if they were interested in maybe working with someone, whether it's when they're starting or a little bit later down the line, similar to you. Maybe they try starting and then they're ready to work with someone that's more specific to their niche. I always tell people when they hire a coach that are other therapists or other doctors or other clinicians, I always love exactly what you said, work with someone that's a little more of that understands marketing, understands the general aspect, and then find someone that aligns with your ultimate goal of like, if you want to do a similar practice style as them or serve similar people, then hire someone that's niches in that because then they can help you kind of set something up similar. I just see sometimes people hire a coach, but then it doesn't align exactly with what they're trying to do. And so I always think I kind of like the way you did it. So tell me a little bit how you help people that choose to work with you.
Yeah, a lot of what I work with is helping people understand digital marketing and search engine optimization, because like you just said, a lot of people who end up working with me are also maybe not introverted. Some of them are, but they might also just be like, I don't have the energy to do a ton of networking. I don't have the time to show up on Instagram all the time. But like, those are the things they're trying because those are the things people say are effective and it seems easy. Digital marketing and SEO, they're so misunderstood. It feels like they're really hard and there's no way you're going to understand it. But I'm like, no, I can teach you. It's actually really easy steps to do. And then one thing lasts you years as opposed to a networking person who falls off after a month and a reel that stops going viral. So I work a lot with just like how to make marketing more sustainable. And then the other thing I help people do is think about other creative ways to do their clinical work. I do in my practice, and I help other people implement therapy intensives. So these are extended therapy sessions where You might meet with someone for 2 days back to back, half a day for like 3-4 hours, but it's a good way to vary up how you're doing the work, charge a little bit differently, and then ultimately you get to not work so hard and you still get to be effective and you get to make more money. So triple win.
That's awesome. Did you ever run ads or Google ads or anything in the past at all? Did you ever test those out?
Yeah, never for my therapy practice. I do it for my coaching business, but for therapy, I've never had to. SEO and my website just works so well for me that I've even gone to, like, out of curiosity, I went to a company and they were like, I mean, it seems like things are fine. Like, why do you need Google ads? I'm like, I'm just kind of curious about it. Like, if you ever grow into a group practice, come back to us. But like, if you're solo, you're doing fine and don't worry about it.
That's cool. I always tell people the difference between ads and SEO is like ads are like a grocery store. You need them right now. You pay the money, you go and buy it as you need it. SEO is like a crop field. You're planting the seeds and over time it yields a harvest for sometimes years to come. And so that's what I always tell people, like, it's great to do SEO, but if you need clients right now, ads could work depending. But if you are kind of pairing that with other marketing efforts, like you did a couple other things in the beginning until you got to that place where it began to kind of bring in the harvest, so to speak. And I always explain it to people like that because sometimes they don't always know the difference between like what is SEO, but SEO essentially is like you're planting all these little seeds in the internet. And ultimately over time, Google begins to say, oh, this is someone, like you said, that's active, that's reputable. They're, featured here. Have you actually ever like written blogs as an expert for other online channels?
I have for one, a therapy directory. They were like searching for people to input blogs. So I have one backlink from that. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that then doing all your backlinks as well helps as well with the growth. But that's really awesome. I always ask everyone this question. If someone is starting their practice or maybe they've already opened and they're kind of like struggling or they're a little frustrated or they're not sure which way to go, what advice would you give that person?
I take a very grounded approach of like, it's too easy these days to just say like, trust in the process and like, it's all going to work, because there are very real financial stressors. Like you still have rent or a mortgage or bills to pay and stuff like that. So a lot of times too, it's about, let's plant these seeds that are going to work. And in the interim, let's figure out also like what you need to live your life right now. And so some people do join these EAP programs temporarily, get on insurance temporarily. And just because you're making these decisions of what you don't want for yourself forever, it doesn't mean you're stuck in that forever. It means like, what's your right now decision while we work on like the forever strategy.
I love that. I've never heard someone say it like that, but I always say that no one opens a business to like close it in a year. Like that's normally not the plan. Normally the plan is, you're planting the seeds today, you're building that pipeline, so to speak, while you're also trying to make the money of today. And so that's something that not many people have ever said. And I love that you said that. But what I've told people too is I've had people hire me 2-3 years later. Like they started following me and then they hire me 2-3 years later. And I always tell people you want to nurture those people that have reached out to you because maybe they're not ready today, but who's not to say a life change happens a year down the road, 2 years down the road. And they're like, okay, or their income increases and now they can afford the cash pay fee. Too many times people don't see that lead convert today and they just let them disappear and they just let them go. And they don't always like nurture them or add them to an email list or an email marketing list or, somewhere when a blog comes out, they're subscribed to something where they can see you're writing something new and they want to go read it because maybe the topic spoke to them. Real quick, do you do email marketing?
I haven't for my therapy business. Okay. It's something I plan to get into in the next few months.
Okay. I was just curious because I mentioned that and I was like, oh, yeah. If people subscribe to your blog though, do they get notified when you put out a new blog?
They should. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, ultimately that's a way to kind of like nurture those current people as well, obviously. Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I think this was actually really helpful. It is something some of the topics we haven't talked about. And I like kind of like how you dived a little further into the SEO.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining today's podcast episode. And I have dropped a few links below if you're looking for a DIY option for launching your website. I just updated our DIY course on how to leverage AI to make your website, along with our sales and marketing course that is really popular as well. Make sure to tune in as we have more episodes coming.